I'm really against the death penalty, and I feel I'm particularly qualified to talk about that because my mum was murdered in March 2004, and the man that did it was released last September. And
how did that feel, Charlotte?
How did it feel, him being released?
Yes.
It was very, very mixed emotions. As the person whose mother was murdered, I felt really sad, and I realised it was really unfair because he gets to start again, and my mum never did. But then again, I thought about if he was my child, because I have a son, and, you know, people do these things, and people can be really sorry, and people can actually learn from what they've done. And when I switch it round like that, I think that everybody deserves an opportunity to correct the wrongs isn't quite the right term.
To repent.
But what I believe about prisoners, that it should be about rehabilitation, and all anyone ever talks about is punishment. But that's why we have so many reoffenders, because all we seem to do is punish. We don't actually try and make them better people.
It's an oddly Anglo-Saxon position, that. It's British and American rhetoric of justice that does this, and possibly other countries as well, but these are the ones we live in, and other European countries in particular have a very, very different attitude to the question of rehabilitation and punishment. And we've created environments in which it's a vote winner to sort of pander to the hang 'em and flog 'em brigade. It wins votes for right-wing politicians.
I hate that.
Yes.
You know, I mean, we teach about, you know, I have dogs, I have children, about positive reinforcement, and yet when it comes to criminals, all we want to do is hammer them over the head.
Yes.
And it doesn't make things better.
But I suppose what I'm struggling with today is the exceptional status of these two characters. So, you know, the crimes they've committed don't really stand comparison with hardly any others. The number of deaths, the promotion of terrorism, the subscription to this warped medievalist ideology.
Don't you think that they might be mentally ill? They have been completely brainwashed, that actually there's something really wrong with them, rather than thinking they're intrinsically evil.
Listen, you've lost your mother in the most awful of circumstances. There's no earthly way I'm going to argue with you about whether or not some people are fundamentally evil.
No. But I don't, you know, I just...
But for the record, no, I don't think people are fundamentally evil. I think you have to believe that, otherwise you might as well pack up and go home. Everyone is capable of redemption and repentance.
And that's why I just can't believe in the death penalty. The other reason why is it's been gotten wrong. You know, people get stuff wrong. Even with the type of evidence we've got today, people are wrongly convicted.
Yes, they are.
I'm not saying these two people are, but as a whole, we have to follow Kant's universal maxim to an extent of this idea that you shouldn't actually, murder anybody. Nobody should be killed because killing is ultimately wrong.
Did you just drop the categorical imperative into the middle of my radio phone-in programme?
Yeah, I'm going to have to. You also dropped in, I was listening earlier, a bit of Marx there.
a little bit.
With the opiate of the people, which I also dropped the other day.
Well, if you carry on like this, I should be reaching for John Rawls's veil of ignorance. But there is something here that suggests, imagine it was you, and then base your...
Yeah, well, that is what I try and do. You know, you say to me, how did I feel when the man was released? I felt as someone who had murdered my mother, but I know that there's a bigger picture than that.
Wow.
There really is a much bigger picture than that. You know, I think about his parents or his stepchildren, and I remember talking to them and at the trial and after he was convicted, and them saying, it just isn't right. This isn't him. Yes. And, you know, he definitely did do it because he actually confessed to doing it and all sorts of things. So, but there is not one side of a person or one side of an issue or one side of a story, and it's about getting the whole of that. And I just think that death is so final, you can never come back from that.
No, and
no amount of sorry or compensation can ever change it.
And I suppose you're faced, people in your position are faced with a question whether they're going to be defined by the complicated compassion that you've just described, and it is very complicated. As I think you've made clear to everybody listening, or do you continue to be defined by rage and regret. And that
But rage
compromises
gets you
your life.
nowhere.
Well, that's what I mean. That makes your life
Yeah.
worse. I think you would lead a better
does.
life from where you are today than you would have done if you were still fuming.
I could choose to try and track the man down
Yes, I know.
and do him harm, but where would that get me? And that wouldn't make me any better than him. And actually, I know that my mum wouldn't have wanted that because that would get me into trouble.
What a lovely thing to say. And that these things need to be taken into account. Charlotte, what an astonishing call. Will you phone me on a lighter-hearted subject next time?
I don't do light-hearted. I studied philosophy as a degree.
That's typical Kantian.